skyrocketing housing costs, soaring inflation, and deepening social divides? It's a crisis we've heard about in the US and Canada. But did you know Europe's wealthiest nations are facing these same struggles? Western Europe, often seen as the pinnacle of prosperity, is grappling with challenges that are pushing some countries to the brink. In today's video, we'll take a closer look at 10 Western European countries that are struggling under the weight of economic instability, political unrest, and rising costs of living. These are nations we often think of as rich, stable, and immune to collapse, but the cracks in their systems are becoming harder to ignore. So, join us as we uncover how these challenges are reshaping the future of Western Europe. From Germany's energy crisis to Greece's staggering debt, this is a deep dive you won't want to miss. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Your support lets us bring more travel insights your way. Germany, a powerhouse. Feeling the strain. Germany, the economic titan of Europe, might seem untouchable from the outside. But beneath the surface, cracks are forming, and the challenges facing the nation are becoming impossible to ignore. Let's start with Germany's aging population. A ticking demographic time bomb. More retirees, fewer workers. It's a simple equation with complicated consequences. Businesses are desperate to fill jobs, but the shrinking labor force means fewer hands to keep the economy running. And while immigration could help solve this problem, it's not without its own challenges. The issue of illegal immigration has sparked heated debates across Germany. As undocumented immigrants arrive in growing numbers, communities are struggling to cope. Housing shortages are worsening. Schools and healthcare systems are stretched thin, and social tensions are on the rise. For immigrants, finding stable work is often a challenge, leaving many stuck in precarious situations. Meanwhile, longtime residents are feeling the strain too, with competition for jobs and resources fueling resentment. It's a recipe for division in a country that prides itself on unity. Then there's the energy crisis, a challenge that's hitting every corner of the nation. Germany's ambitious push for renewable energy is admirable, but the transition has been anything but smooth. Geopolitical tensions and reliance on imported energy have sent prices soaring. Imagine being a small business owner watching your energy bills double overnight, or a factory struggling to stay competitive as costs spiral out of control. The ripple effects are hitting households, industries, and the broader economy hard. And let's not forget inflation. For everyday Germans, rising costs are eating into savings and making life more expensive than ever. Protests over everything from energy prices to immigration policies are becoming more frequent, as frustration boils over into the streets. Germany's struggles are a reminder that even the strongest nations aren't immune to collapse. What do you think? Could Europe's biggest economy bounce back, or are these challenges too great? Let us know in the comments. Next, let's head west to the Netherlands, where housing shortages and social tensions are creating cracks in another European success story. The Netherlands, known for its charm and progressive policies, is now struggling to keep up with the growing pressures of modern life. Beneath the beauty of Amsterdam's canals lies a housing market that's spiraling out of control. Finding a place to live in cities like Amsterdam or Utrecht feels like winning the lottery. Demand far outweighs supply, and prices are so high that even middle-class families are squeezed into tiny apartments or forced to look elsewhere. For young professionals, moving out or buying a home seems like an impossible dream. Adding fuel to the fire is immigration. While newcomers bring vitality and diversity, the sheer numbers, both legal and illegal, have overwhelmed housing and public services. Locals are growing frustrated, worried about competing for limited jobs and resources. And for immigrants, many struggle to integrate, facing barriers in language and employment, which only deepens the divide. On top of this, the population is aging. With fewer people working and more retiring, businesses are struggling to fill jobs, while pensions and healthcare costs keep rising. It's a delicate balance, and one the Netherlands is finding harder and harder to manage. So, what happens when a country known for its stability and fairness starts to buckle under the weight of its challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. From here, let's travel to Ireland, where a housing crisis and rising living costs are testing the limits of the Emerald Isle. Ireland, often admired for its lush landscapes and thriving tech industry, is now grappling with challenges that are leaving its residents feeling squeezed and frustrated. Beneath the surface of its economic success lies a housing crisis so severe, it's reshaping life on the Emerald Isle. Let's talk about housing, or the lack of it. In cities like Dublin, rents have skyrocketed to the point where even full-time workers are struggling to keep up. A single-bedroom apartment can easily cost over $2,000 a month, leaving families and young professionals with limited options. Many are forced to share overcrowded spaces, delay moving out, or spend more than half their income on housing. Imagine working hard, yet still feeling like you're barely scraping by. This is the reality for thousands of Irish residents. And it's not just housing that's under pressure. Immigration is playing a significant role too. Ireland has welcomed a growing number of immigrants in recent years, but the infrastructure to support them hasn't kept pace. Schools, healthcare services, and housing markets are all feeling the strain, and tensions are rising as locals and newcomers compete for limited resources. For immigrants, the barriers to integration, such as finding affordable housing or stable jobs, only add to the challenge. At the same time, Ireland's healthcare system is buckling under the weight of these economic pressures. Long wait times and limited access to care are leaving vulnerable populations, especially those in precarious housing situations, without the support they need. For many, the dream of a better quality of life in Ireland feels increasingly out of reach. So, where does this leave Ireland? A country known for its warmth and opportunity now finds itself at a crossroads, facing hard questions about how to balance growth, integration, and fairness. What do you think? Can Ireland overcome these challenges, or is it in for a tough road ahead? Share your thoughts in the comments. Before we continue, could I ask for a quick favor? If you're finding this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with all our latest videos and won't risk missing out on our next hidden gem. It's free, and it helps us continue bringing you the best travel content out there. Thanks so much for your support. Now, let's make our way to Belgium, a country grappling with political gridlock and economic inequality that are testing the limits of its stability. Belgium, nestled in the heart of Europe, is often celebrated for its rich history, cultural diversity, and role as the political center of the European Union. But behind its picturesque cities and international prestige, the country is struggling with issues that are pulling it in different directions. One of Belgium's biggest challenges is political fragmentation. With multiple political parties representing the country's linguistic and regional divides, particularly between the Flemish-speaking north and the French-speaking south, forming a government is like solving a Rubik's Cube in the dark. Long coalition talks and disagreements mean that critical policies, like those addressing economic reform and infrastructure development, are delayed or watered down. For Belgians, this political stalemate feels less like democracy in action and more like being stuck in neutral while problems pile up. And those problems are big. Economic inequality is growing, with wealth and opportunity concentrated in urban hubs while smaller towns and rural areas are left behind. Rising public debt adds to the tension, as the government struggles to fund social programs without creating more economic strain. For many Belgians, there's a growing sense of frustration as they see their quality of life decline, while the cost of living keeps climbing. On top of this, immigration and integration remain hot-button issues. Belgium's status as a gateway to Europe has made it a destination for immigrants and refugees, which has enriched the cultural fabric of the country. But it's also created challenges. Language barriers, limited job opportunities, and discrimination make integration difficult, leaving some communities feeling excluded and others worried about resource allocation. The result? A divided society that's struggling to find common ground. And then there's the perception of safety. Belgium has seen an uptick in protests and social unrest in recent years, driven by dissatisfaction over economic policies and immigration issues. This unrest highlights the growing divide between different groups, making it clear that the country's challenges go beyond just numbers and policies. They're about the social fabric itself. So, what happens when a nation known for bridging divides starts to unravel from within? Can Belgium find its way back to stability? Or will its fragmentation only deepen? Share your thoughts in the comments. Next, we move to the United Kingdom, where political instability and rising living costs are testing the strength of this once global superpower. The United Kingdom, once a global superpower and the heart of an empire, is now facing challenges that are shaking its very foundation. Political instability, rising living costs, and deepening social divides are painting a troubling picture for the future of this iconic nation. Let's start with the cost of living crisis, a topic that feels all too familiar if you're living in the US or Canada. Inflation has surged in recent years, making everything from groceries to energy bills painfully expensive. But in the UK, the situation is particularly dire due to the ripple effects of Brexit, which disrupted trade agreements and raised the cost of imports. Imagine paying over $10 for a gallon of gas, or seeing your electricity bill double in a single year. That's the reality for millions of Brits. For families, this means tough decisions. Heating their homes during the winter or putting food on the table. Sound extreme? It's not. Food banks in the UK have reported record levels of demand, with some families relying on them regularly to get by. It's a stark contrast to the country's image as a wealthy first-world nation. Then there's political instability. Brexit, which was supposed to bring freedom from EU regulations, has instead left the UK more divided than ever. Scotland is renewing calls for independence. Northern Ireland remains caught in post-Brexit tensions, and the government in Westminster seems more focused on internal squabbles than on solving the country's pressing problems. For many Brits, politics feels like a never-ending soap opera, with high stakes and little resolution. And let's talk about immigration, another contentious issue. The UK has long been a destination for immigrants seeking better opportunities, but recent years have seen a surge in illegal crossings, particularly across the English Channel. This has strained the country's already stretched housing and healthcare systems, sparking debates about how to balance compassion for refugees with the need to protect resources for citizens. The parallels to immigration debates in the US and Canada are hard to ignore. It's a challenge of balancing fairness, security, and humanity. Social unrest has become the new normal, with protests over everything from rising costs to immigration policies filling the streets of London and beyond. The UK is at a crossroads, with its identity, unity, and future hanging in the balance. What do you think? Can the UK weather these storms, or is the once great nation heading for a deeper decline? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's head south to Portugal, where economic stagnation and a brain drain are threatening the future of this beautiful coastal nation. Portugal, with its stunning coastline and rich cultural history, is a favorite for tourists, retirees, and digital nomads. But beneath the sunny facade, the country is grappling with serious challenges that threaten its stability and future. One of the biggest issues? A brain drain. Young, educated professionals are leaving Portugal in droves, heading to countries like Germany, the UK, or even Canada in search of higher wages and better opportunities. Why? Because Portugal's economy has struggled to provide well-paying jobs, and many skilled workers feel like they have no choice but to leave. Imagine investing in years of education and hard work, only to realize your only path forward is outside your home country. It's a story many young Canadians and Americans can relate to, as similar economic pressures push them to seek opportunities in bigger cities or abroad. This exodus of talent is leaving behind an aging population, creating a demographic imbalance that's hard to ignore. More retirees mean more pressure on social security and healthcare systems, while fewer workers are left to contribute to these critical programs. Sound familiar? Countries like the US and Canada are also grappling with aging populations, but Portugal's smaller economy makes the impact even harder to bear. Then there's public debt, a lingering consequence of the 2008 financial crisis. Portugal implemented harsh austerity measures to recover, cutting public spending on infrastructure, healthcare, and education. While these steps stabilized the economy on paper, they also left a legacy of underinvestment that continues to hurt the country. Roads, schools, and hospitals are showing their age, and many rural areas feel neglected and disconnected from Portugal's economic centers. Immigration offers a glimmer of hope, but also introduces new challenges. Portugal has welcomed newcomers in recent years, particularly as a way to offset its workforce decline. However, integrating these immigrants into the labor market and society is easier said than done. Language barriers, limited job opportunities, and cultural differences can make the process slow and difficult, leading to frustration on all sides. For many, the frustration boils down to one question: is Portugal's future slipping away? Can the country find a way to keep its young talent, support its aging population, and rebuild its economy? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Next, let's move to France, a nation where protests, high unemployment, and social unrest are becoming the norm. France, with its iconic landmarks and celebrated culture, has long been a symbol of prosperity and unity. But behind the beauty of Paris and the charm of Provence lies a nation grappling with deep-rooted challenges that are pushing it toward instability. One of the most visible signs of France's struggles is the protests. Whether it's over pension reforms, labor policies, or the rising cost of living, the streets of France have become a stage for public outrage. These protests are more than just isolated events. They're a symptom of a broader frustration. Imagine trying to balance your budget with stagnant wages while prices for essentials like energy and food keep climbing. For many French citizens, life feels like a daily struggle to stay afloat. The youth unemployment crisis adds another layer to the problem. Despite France's position as an economic powerhouse, many young people are struggling to find stable jobs. It's not just about employment numbers, it's about hope. Picture graduating with dreams of building a future, only to face rejection after rejection. This has left an entire generation feeling left behind, similar to the struggles faced by young professionals in Southern Europe, or even parts of North America. And then there's immigration, a topic that stirs intense debate across the country. France has a long history of welcoming immigrants, but the system is under strain. Social services, housing, and job markets are struggling to keep up, creating friction in communities where resources feel stretched. Meanwhile, some immigrants face barriers to integration, from language challenges to discrimination, leaving them isolated and disillusioned. The result is a nation divided, with rising tensions between communities and growing political polarization. Adding to these challenges is the issue of an aging population. Like many European nations, France's pension system is under immense pressure. With more retirees and fewer workers, the financial sustainability of pensions is being called into question. Recent attempts to reform the system sparked massive protests, highlighting the difficulty of balancing necessary changes with public acceptance. So where does France go from here? Can it find a way to rebuild trust, tackle inequality, and provide hope for its youth? Or will the protests and division continue to deepen? Let us know what you think in the comments. Now, let's head south to Italy, a country facing its own set of challenges, from economic stagnation to demographic shifts that are reshaping its future. Italy, with its rich history, world-renowned cuisine, and breathtaking landscapes, seems like the epitome of charm and stability. But beneath the surface, this Mediterranean gem is struggling with challenges that are chipping away at its foundation. Let's start with economic stagnation, one of Italy's most pressing issues. For years, the country's GDP growth has been sluggish, barely keeping pace with inflation. High public debt, one of the largest in the European Union, acts like a ball and chain, limiting the government's ability to invest in infrastructure, education, and innovation. Imagine trying to grow a garden while being forced to carry a boulder on your back. It's a struggle that leaves little room for progress. This economic stagnation has led to a brain drain that's reshaping Italy's future. Young professionals, frustrated by limited job opportunities and low wages, are leaving in droves for countries like Germany, the UK, or even the US. It's a story that mirrors Portugal's challenges. Ambitious, educated individuals seeking better prospects abroad, while Italy loses the very talent it needs to thrive. Think about it. How can a country innovate and grow when its brightest minds are building futures elsewhere? Then there's the aging population, a demographic shift that's putting enormous pressure on pensions and healthcare. With fewer workers contributing to the system and more retirees drawing from it, Italy's social safety net is starting to fray. And while immigration could help offset this imbalance, the country faces significant challenges in integrating newcomers. Illegal immigration across the Mediterranean has brought thousands to Italy's shores, overwhelming its resources and sparking tensions in coastal communities. For many Italians, the strain on housing, healthcare, and jobs is becoming harder to bear. All of this is happening against a backdrop of political instability. Italy has seen over 60 different governments since World War II, and the lack of long-term leadership makes it difficult to address these structural problems. Citizens are growing weary of promises without follow-through, fueling frustration and cynicism about the future. So, what's next for Italy? Can it revitalize its economy, support its aging population, and find a way to keep its talent at home? Or will it continue to face the same struggles year after year? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's turn to Sweden, a country known for its social welfare model but now grappling with challenges that are testing its reputation for stability. Sweden, often regarded as a beacon of social welfare and stability, is now facing challenges that are shaking its foundation. Beneath its reputation for equality and economic strength lies a country grappling with growing tensions and unanticipated struggles. One of Sweden's biggest challenges is immigration and integration. For decades, Sweden has been known for its open-door policy, welcoming refugees and immigrants from around the world. While this has enriched the nation's cultural diversity, it has also created significant pressure on housing, jobs, and public services. Many immigrants find it difficult to integrate into the labor market, often ending up in low-paying or unstable jobs, or out of work entirely. The result? high unemployment rates in certain communities and rising tensions as locals feel the strain on shared resources. Imagine living in a country celebrated for its welfare programs, only to find that demand has outpaced the system's capacity. Adding to these struggles is a housing crisis that's hitting urban areas like Stockholm and Gothenburg the hardest. The demand for affordable housing far exceeds the supply, leading to skyrocketing rents and long waiting lists for government-subsidized apartments. For many Swedes, especially young people and low-income families, finding a place to live is becoming a near impossible task. Sound familiar? It mirrors the challenges faced in cities like Vancouver or San Francisco, where housing shortages push people further from the dream of stability. And then there's rising crime, a relatively new issue for a country once known for its safety. Gang violence and drug-related offenses have been on the rise, with cities like Malmö and Stockholm seeing spikes in shootings and organized crime activity. The perception of safety is shifting, and for a nation that has long prided itself on its low crime rates, this change is unsettling. Some blame the surge on socioeconomic divides and struggles with integrating immigrant communities, while others point to broader trends of inequality. On top of all this, Sweden is dealing with the familiar burden of an aging population. Like much of Europe, its pension and healthcare systems are under pressure as retirees outnumber the working population. With fewer people paying into the system and more drawing from it, the question looms: can Sweden's welfare model survive these growing demands? Sweden's challenges are a reminder that even the most admired systems can falter under the weight of rapid change. What do you think? Can Sweden balance openness and stability, or is its welfare model stretched too thin? Let us know in the comments. Finally, let's head to Greece, where the lingering effects of an economic crisis still cast a long shadow over the country's future. As we've seen throughout this video, even some of Europe's most admired and historically stable nations are struggling to maintain their footing. From Germany's labor shortages and energy crisis to Greece's lingering debt and brain drain, these challenges are reshaping the continent in ways that are hard to ignore. Housing crises, rising costs of living, political instability, and immigration pressures, these interconnected issues are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're realities affecting millions of lives. But this isn't the whole story of Europe. While we focused on Western European countries in this video, what about Eastern Europe? Many of those nations are facing their own unique challenges, from political corruption to economic instability and emigration. Would you like us to explore the fastest collapsing countries in Eastern Europe next? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. The lessons from these Western European countries are clear. Even the wealthiest and most resilient nations aren't immune to systemic challenges. They remind us that stability requires constant effort, innovation, and adaptation. Whether you're in Europe, North America, or anywhere else, these stories offer a glimpse into how interconnected the world's struggles truly are. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with others who might find it insightful. Your support helps us bring you more content like this, tackling the critical issues shaping our world today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.